Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we plant up some beautiful full sun container pots. So let's go. I love to garden on a budget. Much of that has to do with making my own potting mix, starting plants from seed, collecting my own seeds, as well as overwintering plants. Today we're going to plant up some beautiful container pots that will do well in a full sun location. When it comes to my potting mix, I like to make my own. I'll put a link to that video down in the description below. You can use whatever potting mix you want when it comes to filling up your containers. I will say it's totally okay to reuse old potting mix, as long as it didn't have any plants that had disease or insect pressure in it. Also, I like to top off my container pots with new potting mix that I've made each year. But plants do need nutrition, so I do like to also add slow-release fertilizer in each of my planting holes, and then I like to fertilize my plants with a liquid fertilizer about every 1 to 2 weeks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. So let's get started with this big pot right over here. It's going to go between my 2 garage doors. I'll be sure to put the dimensions of this pot on the screen. We're going to head over to my side porch. And yes, it's a jungle in there. There are a lot of plants on here that I either overwintered in my garage or I started from seed. We're going to go to the very top and we're going to grab some geraniums. We're going to grab one of these and another. Next, we're going to head over to what I call my rolling racks or rolling carts. And those have a bunch of plants on them as well. So I have plants on here that I started from seed and also plants that I overwintered. In case you're wondering why I have so many tomato plants, well, some are for myself, but I also have a backyard plant nursery and I'll be selling those. We're going to grab some of the Dusty Miller. I have 2, if not 3 plants there. And even though they say proven winners, these are not proven winner plants. They're just plants that I overwintered. We'll take a second one and we might as well grab this third one. I also have this plant that's an annual type of grass, I'm pretty sure. And I overwintered it in my garage. We're going to go ahead and put this in the center of our pot. There is a bunch of trailing vinca, so we're going to grab maybe 2. I'm not sure if we're going to use both of them. I'm grabbing more than less, so we're going to see what we're going to end up using for this project. This is Creeping Jenny. We have some lysimachia, and we have some lamium. With each plant comes a story. In regards to the geraniums, they are geraniums that I overwintered from last year. Geraniums, also known as pelargoniums, are annuals, and they're not hardy here where I live in New Hampshire Zone 5B. So there are many different ways you can overwinter geraniums. Personally, I've had a lot of success overwintering them bare root. If you want to know how to do that, I'll put a link to that video down in the description below. Dusty Miller is questionable. Sometimes it can come back for me, sometimes it doesn't. What I like about overwintering it in my garage is that I start off with a nice big plant that I can pop into containers and pots. One of my goals for this year is to be able to overwinter more of these plants because I want to have a ton more Dusty Miller next year. I've had a lot of success growing Dusty Miller from seed. What I like about overwintering it in the garage though is that I end up with a nice big plant early in the season. In regards to the trailing vinca vine, also it's questionable. Sometimes it can be hardy in my zone. Generally, it's hardy in zone 7 and above. I bought one plant many years ago, and since then, I've been able to divide and propagate this plant. You can actually cut off pieces of it, put it in a jar of water, and you'll end up getting new plants that way. You can actually take cuttings of many of these plants doing that same method, or by taking the cutting and sticking it in soil. When it comes to this lysimachia, I took a very small piece of it from a community garden space, and I was able to propagate it in water. Also, I have many of these plants. I love this plant. I had it in my pots and containers last year, and I can't wait to use it again this year. I don't know why, but I overwintered the lamium in my garage. I have a lot of lamium in my landscape as well as down in my plant nursery. What I'm planning to do is shop my plant nursery. I'll grab more of these plants just in case I want to use them in my pots and containers that we're going to build today. And since I have lamium in my landscape, that means yes, it is a perennial here where I live. I forget the name of this grass that I'm going to be putting in the center of this pot. My sister-in-law had given me a small piece of it last year, and I overwintered it in my garage. There are a lot of pieces that don't look good on there, but then there are some pieces that have come alive. What we'll be doing is cleaning it up as we plant it in the container. So what I'd like to do is start from the center of the pot and work our way around it. That means we're going to take our thriller, the thing that's in the center of the pot that's going to be the tallest, and we're going to put that in first. So I'm just going to go ahead and loosen the container. When it comes to filling up a container pot like this, I don't want the soil level to be flush with the top here. I want it to be down about 1 inch or so. And the reason is when it rains, especially if we get a lot of rain, I don't want the soil to run off the top. So as we're planting, if I end up with excess soil, I can always put it in a different pot. So any pieces that are falling out that don't look good, I'm going to remove. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my hand pruners and I'm going to cut back any of these pieces that don't look very good. I'm just trying to clean it up. And I believe what will happen over time is this will all fill in. Any new growth will push through the bottom. I love overwintering plants in my garage. Sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. It's always one big experiment. So I'm thrilled that even some of this plant survived for me. There's something to be said about making a container pot and getting that instant wow factor. But then there's also something to be said about making a beautiful container pot that might take a while for it to fill in. And I think that that's part of gardening, is testing things out and being patient. And I'm hopeful that new pieces will push through the center here. That's why I'm not pulling this apart. I just want to keep the roots intact. It doesn't look like much right now, but I have full faith that this will fill in. So we're going to be placing this in the center of our pot, and the roots are not very deep, but I do want to make sure that I plant it enough so that these roots are beneath soil level. So I'm carefully pushing all this aside. I like to use Osmocote slow release fertilizer when I'm planting a lot of my container pots up, and I place a small pinch of it in each planting hole. I like to buy this in bulk on Amazon. We can go ahead and place this in our center. I'm just going to push down. And since the potting mix is pretty much at the top of my pot, any excess potting mix that we have, I can just throw in here and I can reuse that for a different project. Look how pretty these geraniums are. If you can believe it, I got them for free from a friend of mine and I was able to successfully overwinter them. And if you look at the base, they really filled in. Even though there were some sections that didn't make it or come back, overall, the plant looks great. So I'd like to plant them on either side of this grass. I know I'm going to have excess soil, so I'm just emptying everything out in here for right now. I'm squeezing the pot to loosen the roots. And I'm going to take off some of this potting mix. And check out the root system. It really has filled in nicely. Add a pinch of the slow release fertilizer and then place our geranium. And I'm just pushing down. And this is definitely going to be full. Just even the one geranium fills this quite in. Let's go ahead and get the second one placed. Part of gardening is just experimenting and trying different things. That's what I've learned, not only when it comes to gardening out in my landscape, but even when it comes to container pots. I'll give it time, and if I feel like things aren't looking great, I can always adjust. So pretty, look at that. I want to show you this piece right here doesn't have any leaves on it, but it's also not dead. So I'm going to leave it for now and we'll see if it ends up pushing out new leaves. Let's go ahead and make an area for our second geranium. Add some fertilizer and then we'll place it here. If I did notice any leaves on here that didn't look very good, I can also go ahead at this time and remove those. We'll push down. So like this leaf right here that's a little yellow, I'm just going to follow it all the way down and remove that. So I'm stepping back and I'm noticing that these little sprigs in the center here are getting a little smothered. I can always come in here right now and just remove some of the leaves from the center. And that way it's just giving it a little bit more room to breathe. And I can keep that maintenance going during the season by coming in and pulling some of those leaves in the center off of my geraniums. And now I'm placing one of the dusty millers here. I want to see how that looks just in the center between these two. And I'm going to take another one and I'm going to place it on the other side. And now I'm stepping back with you and I'm looking at it. Even though the pot is tall, remember when we plant the Dusty Miller, it will be shorter. But over time, that Dusty Miller does grow, it does get taller, but I can always size control it if need be. I think that would look really pretty in this pot. So let's go ahead and loosen the potting mix. One thing that I have never tried before, I say I want to do it every year, but I haven't done it, is take cuttings off of my Dusty Miller. Since I only had 3 that I overwintered, I would like to come in on a different day and take cuttings. And if I get them to root, I'll make a video showing you what I did to do that. I have a lot of luck propagating plants from cuttings, so I don't think Dusty Miller should be any different. I am taking a lot of this potting mix off, and the plant should be fine. It's because we don't need all this potting mix in our pot or container. I'm not planning to put irrigation to this container. Because of the placement of it between my 2 garage doors, I don't foresee it being very easy for me to be able to add drip irrigation to this. And I am trying to pick plants that would do okay, that can tolerate a little bit of drought. We'll tuck that in there, and then we're going to backfill. And I'm just making sure I press down. I love this silver color. I think the silver foliage looks really pretty with the green. We'll do the same thing on this side. I'm going to keep the roots intact, but plants are very resilient. If you had too many roots and they weren't fitting in whatever container you're planting it in, you could always go ahead and root prune or cut off some of the roots. Just make sure that you leave enough roots on the plant so that it's not too stressed. And I'm just removing some of the leaves that don't look very good. I'm going to turn it around. And we'll just backfill and press. Since these Dusty Miller were on the bottom of my rolling cart, they were stretching for the light. They'll be a lot happier now that they're going to be out in the open. So I'm stepping back and looking at what we have. Because I want this pot to be fairly simple, I don't think I want to add any more annuals at this time. I can always come back in later and pop some annuals in there. I want to now add something that's going to trail over the edge, which would be our spiller. So I pulled these plants out just to give you some different ideas that you could use for spillers. We could do the vinca vine, and that's really pretty with its variegated leaves. We have lamium, and even though it does put out some blooms, it's really known for its foliage. And that's also very pretty. It has a little bit of a silver to it. And like I mentioned, this one particular plant looks a little pathetic. I have lots of this around my yard. We have this beautiful lysimachia, and I love the red that it has in the center of its leaves. And all of these spillers will spill. Some of them spill more than others. The vinca would spill all the way down to the ground, so I would have to keep that size controlled. The same is true with the lysimachia. However, the lamium, it would not spill down to the ground. It would just barely spill over the edge. Another great spiller, although it is considered invasive here in New Hampshire, is a different type of lysimachia, and it's called creeping Jenny. I dug a whole patch of it in my backyard where I have it crawling in this one space of my yard. And the more I look at it, I'm thinking, I think I want to tuck this into our pot. And the reason is I love the chartreuse green color that it would provide to our container pot. And in terms of how much it would spill over the pot, if you let it go, it could reach down to the ground. But again, just giving it a haircut during the season would control that. So I'm just going to come through here and pick out some chunks of this. There is grass mixed in, so I'm going to have to make sure I pull the grass out. We have plenty of it. Let's start with this much, and if we need to add more, we can always add more. So what I'm thinking of doing is adding some lysimachia on this side, some lysimachia on that side, and maybe we still might add some sort of a different spiller in the center. Let's see. Give a little fertilizer, and let's tuck that in. It looks a little tired right now because it's been in my shed, but give it a few days and it will take right off. We'll tuck this one here. And I am being a little lazy. I could come in here and clean up the creeping Jenny if I wanted to and take out some of the old pieces. But I'd rather just let it recover from being planted. And in a few days, I can always come in here and just pull off any pieces that don't look good. And I'm stepping back and I'm looking at what we've done so far. I really love that chartreuse green color spilling over the edge. and it's just going to look so pretty like everything else as the season progresses. I went down to my plant nursery and I pulled one plant out because why not? So I'm going to go ahead and mix it in with this plant here, and we're going to pop it in towards the center of the pot. Like I mentioned earlier, I have plenty of lamium out in my landscape, and I really could pack these container pots for instant gratification if I wanted to. But I also think it's good to show you over the summer how you can have a small plant like this as well as these and how they can really fill in an area. And one thing that I'm hopefully going to motivate you and get you to think about is trying to start things from seed or overwinter plants, basically using things that you already have at your disposal in your landscape to create your container pots on a budget. I'm going to do the exact same thing with these 3 plants on the other side of the pot, and then I'll show you what's next. I'm stepping back, I'm just looking at it, and it looks like I need to turn it just a tiny bit more. Then we're going to give it a nice drink of water. Just like that. I also want to make sure that this is out enough from the house, because if it's too close to the house, it's going to be under the eaves and it's going to get pummeled with water. And time for a small drink of water. I love how this came out. I just think it's so pretty here, and it really needed some color in this one area of my yard. I love the plants that we chose for it, and I can't wait to give you updates as this planter fills out. In terms of maintenance, I'll be giving liquid fertilizer. I like to use Miracle-Gro, and I'll be doing that about once every 1 to 2 weeks. And then the only other thing in terms of major maintenance will be coming in and deadheading the blossoms of the geranium, just to make sure that it continues blooming for us during the season. So pretty. I love how this came out. We're going to move on to our next container. I have 4 window boxes. I'll pop up the dimensions of the window boxes up on the screen. I bought these window boxes on Amazon this year. I'll also put a link to them in case you're interested. These are going to be placed upstairs off my bedroom balcony that gets a fair amount of sun. And since the balcony is pretty high up, I figured now is a great time for me to use spillers that can really spill. So this is the recipe I'm going to use. On either side, I'm going to be putting in the vinca vine. Towards the center will be the lysimachia. On either side of the lysimachia will be the creeping jenny, which, like I mentioned earlier, is a type of lysimachia. And then towards the back, we're going to pack it with petunias that I started from seed. I can't tell you how many years I used to buy this vinca vine to fill up my window boxes and container pots. It's just so nice not having to buy it ever again. I really do like this vine inside of my containers. I just think it's a very, very pretty thing to add because of its variegated leaves. And even though there aren't many shoots coming through the base here, as the season progresses, it will end up growing and getting bigger and bigger, which will really fill out this area. And then in the fall, when it's time to overwinter this in my garage, I can then come in and start dividing them and potting them up individually, which is what I've done over the years. I'll add a pinch of the fertilizer, and we'll get that placed in there. I had the same vinca vine in my window boxes off my bedroom balcony last year, and they reached so far down. It really looked pretty. And I do like to add this in pots and containers around my yard. The only thing is, if it's not a very tall pot, you have to be really good about size controlling and cutting it back. I have so many other pots I need to fill up this year. I have a ton of dahlias that I overwintered, and they already have buds on them. So I will be reusing this potting mix. It will not go to waste. Fertilizer, just pressing down. The same rule applies to this container pot. I want to make sure that the potting mix is not all the way up to the top as I press down, because when it rains, I don't want to make a mess. I don't want soil everywhere. We'll add this one in the center. And these plants are pretty small, but last year they just got huge. They really do take off. I really could just leave it like this because I know this will fill in as well as these guys. But again, since I have so much of the creeping Jenny already pulled out and it really isn't doing well, it needs to be planted somewhere, I figured I might as well plant it in all the different container pots that I'm making. So we're just going to place them right here. I would love to know from you, when you make your container pots, what do you like to reuse to fill up your containers? I will say there's nothing wrong with going out and buying things every single year for your pots. You can definitely do that. But if you do reuse or recycle any plants, what are some of the ones that you like to use? Please drop it down in the comments. It gives me ideas, but it also gives other people ideas as well. I didn't do it this year, but one year I used chives as a thriller in my spring container pots, and actually it looked really pretty. I still need to power wash my balcony. So for today's project, we're just building these window boxes. We're not going to be placing them, but when I do a garden tour in the future, I'll definitely bring you up there so you can see how these are coming along. Got one done, now we'll do our second. We'll tuck those in. Now that we got the spillers all tucked in, let's go shopping and let's go get the petunias that together we started for seed during the winter months. And here they are. They really need to get planted out along with a lot of the other annuals that I started from seed. So these petunias were a mix. They were either Dollar Tree seeds, so they were very cheap, or they were petunias where I collected the seeds, and that's why they're just kind of a random assortment or a mix. Regardless, we're going to just pull a tray and we're going to have a mix of petunias for our window boxes. A common question that I get asked is, when I collect my own seeds from plants, will the plants that get created look like the mother plant? It really depends. If you're collecting seeds from an heirloom or open pollinated plant, then yes, typically the plant will come true to its parent. But you just never know. And since I'm a home gardener, it doesn't bother me. I'm very happy with the element of surprise. I think all flowers look beautiful no matter what, but that's just something to keep in mind. So for example, this tray here, these were petunias that I collected the seeds, and it says cream center, dark edge. Clearly you can see it's a mix. We have some yellow as well as some purple. And this side, some purple. I think each one of them is pretty on their own, no matter how they look. So I'm just going to be planting, starting on the one side here, and I'll work my way through. I'm guessing that I can probably put in about 3 plants in each of these window boxes. Little fertilizer. And seeing that I can see the face of the plants on a lot of them, I might as well do it so that either side of the window box has the striped look to it, and then the center part has the solid color. Now, petunias can also act as a spiller inside of a pot, but because I don't have a ton of full sun in my yard, and I know upstairs I get a lot of sun off my balcony, I might as well put these towards the back and let them do what they want to do. It's been a number of years since I've grown petunias from seed. Some of the petunias that you buy from garden centers, for example, the proven winter petunias, you don't need to do that much maintenance work to. They typically do fine without too much deadheading, for example. But these type of petunias, there's a lot of maintenance involved. So we'll see what I think of it by the end of the season. I'm gonna add fertilizer. I'll put another one that has the stripes on it on the other side. And as hard as it is, I will come back in here sooner than later, and I will cut these back just so that they can flush out, put on new growth, they'll branch out, and they won't be as leggy. And towards the center will go the solid colored petunia. Fertilizer, and we'll put this one right here. I'm pushing down and just making sure that my plant is good and secure. And that's it. I'm going to do the same exact thing with the 3 other window boxes now. I made sure to give the plants a good drink of water. And you know how it is this time of year, when it's warm outside, when it's sunny, the plants are a little mad, they're a little sad, but they'll recover in 1 to 2 days. And everything should fill right in this summer. I just was not too picky when it came to picking out the petunias because, like I mentioned, since I collect the seeds from them, they're going to be a variation. They're all going to be a little bit different, a little bit unique in their own special little way. But again, these were done on a budget and you can't go wrong. They're going to fill right in. I'm happy to report I used up almost all the creeping Jenny that was in that pot. It was dug up temporarily and they were not happy. That's why they're drooping a little bit, but they'll bounce back. I easily could have dug up some nice looking creeping Jenny from my landscape or down in my plant nursery, but I wanted to use what I already had dug up and what was on hand. I really enjoyed putting these container pots together with you. I hope it inspired you in some way. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them down below. And let me know, what are some container pots that you're putting together this year? What are some recipes? Please share that with me. And I'm especially interested in knowing any perennial plants or plants that you've overwintered that you're putting in your pots, because it'll give me some ideas for future containers and it'll give other people ideas as well. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening. In case you're wondering about where those window boxes will be going, they're going to be going right up there where all the little birds are having their food. There are 4 spots for 4 window boxes.